Thank you for joining with me. We are in Chapter 4, The Illusions of the Ego. This is the ego's fear of the atonement principle. And I will just pick up the reading. So Chapter 4, this is text. There is a kind of experience so different from anything the ego can offer that you will never want to cover or hide it again. It is necessary to repeat that your belief in darkness and hiding is why the light cannot enter. The key word in the last sentence is belief. The fact is that there is no darkness and only the belief in it keeps the light of atonement from shining in our minds. This belief, as we have just seen, is hidden by the ego's two-ply shield of guilt and the world of guilt. At that point, then, there is no way of returning to the decision-making point in our minds to make the right choice. Text. In your own mind, though denied by the ego, it is the declaration of your release. God has given you everything. This one fact means the ego does not exist, and this makes it profoundly afraid. This is Ken. In the presence of God's love and the thought of atonement, the ego ceases to exist, which inevitably engenders fear. The statement that God has given us everything expresses the principle of abundance. The seeming absence of our abundance as Christ makes for a world of scarcity and lack, for which the ego attempts to compensate by giving us special love, to supply the love that in our insanity, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, we have chosen to exclude. I need to reread that. The seeming absence of our abundance as Christ makes for a world of scarcity and lack, for which the ego attempts to compensate by giving us special love to supply the love that in our insanity we have chosen to exclude. Because the ego fears the son's awakening to his mistake and choosing again, Jesus appeals to our mind's decision maker, the true referent of you, to look objectively at the incredible situation of trying to prove the Holy Spirit's truth wrong and the ego's illusions true. This is this is the text. I think I keep forgetting to tell you where I am. The calm being of God's kingdom, which in your sane mind is perfectly conscious, is ruthlessly banished from the part of the mind the ego rules. The ego is desperate because it opposes literally invincible odds, whether you are asleep or awake. Consider how much vigilance you have been willing to exert to protect your ego, and how little to protect your right mind. Who but the insane would undertake to believe what is not true, and then protect this belief at the cost of truth? The ego knows that its great enemy is the mind's power to choose against it, and that if the son comes to his senses, it is finished. Who but the insane would choose to ally themselves with sickness, suffering, and death, when the truth of God's eternal peace and love calls them to return home? This is the text. Without your own allegiance, protection, and love, the ego cannot exist. Let it be judged truly, and you must withdraw allegiance, protection, and love from it. This is Ken. The ego works extremely hard to maintain its unbalanced state and keep the right-minded part of us from restoring the mind's balance. The ego exerts maximal vigilance about what it permits into awareness, and this is not the way a balanced mind holds together. The ego is thrown further off balance because it keeps its primary motivation from your awareness, and raises control rather than sanity to predominance. As with the country at war, the ego is extremely careful about the information it allows in. It permits us to hear only what furthers its efforts, and conceals what hinders them. I like this visual. Since this must place us in conflict with ourselves, our minds are out of balance. This, then, is a critically important fact to remember. We are never aware of the ego's primary motivation to keep us mindless, which preserves its separate identity by controlling us through fear. The ego tells us we can be happy by being an individual and having our specialness needs met. It does not tell us we can be happy only by choosing against it and becoming right-minded. What a perfect place to stop. I love that. And I hope that you have a most beautiful day. Thank you so much for joining with me today, and I will see you tomorrow. I love you. Bye-bye.